It was one of those nights when the rain never seemed to stop. The kind of rain that made the roads shine like glass and the air smell of wet earth. Most people were already home, wrapped in warmth. But one man was still out there on the lonely road. His name was Rajesh, a 32-year-old mechanic who had just closed his small garage for the day. He was tired, his hands still smelling of grease, and all he wanted was to reach home, eat something warm, and rest. The wipers moved back and forth, barely keeping up with the heavy rain. His old van rattled a little, the sound blending with the rumbling thunder in the distance. It had been a long day. 2 customers hadn't paid on time, and a new part delivery had been delayed again. Business was tough, but he tried not to think about it. He had learned that worrying didn't fix anything. It only made the nights longer. As he drove through the dark stretch of the highway, the road lights disappeared one by one until only the beams from his van guided the way. The rain fell harder now, turning small puddles into little rivers. He slowed down, gripping the wheel carefully. That's when he noticed something ahead, faint red lights blinking weakly through the curtain of rain. At first, he thought it was just another vehicle parked by the side, maybe someone waiting out the storm. But as he got closer, he realized it was a car with its hazard lights on. The car wasn't moving. A flash of lightning revealed a figure inside, sitting motionless. Rajesh hesitated for a moment. It was late, past 10, and the highway was almost empty. Stopping in such weather wasn't safe. But then again, what if the person inside really needed help? He remembered how once, years ago, his own motorcycle had broken down in the middle of nowhere. A stranger had stopped to help him then. Maybe this was his turn to do the same. He pulled over a few feet ahead of the stranded car and stepped out. The cold rain instantly soaked through his shirt. He ran toward the car, shielding his face with one hand. The window rolled down slightly, and he saw an elderly man sitting inside. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to make a phone call. "Are you all right, sir?" Rajesh shouted over the sound of rain. The old man looked up, startled at first, then relieved. "My car just stopped. I think the battery died," he said, his voice shaking from the cold. "I've been trying to call for help, but there's no signal here." Rajesh nodded. "Don't worry. I'm a mechanic. Let me take a look." The man blinked in surprise. "A mechanic? Well, that's luck in bad weather," he said with a weak smile. Rajesh gave a small grin and got to work. He lifted the hood of the car, using a small flashlight from his pocket. The rain kept pouring down, but he didn't mind. He'd spent most of his life fixing things in worse conditions. The battery terminals were corroded, and the cables looked worn out. He fetched his jumper cables from his van and connected them to his own battery. The old man watched, wiping the fog from his window. Within a few minutes, the car engine coughed, sputtered, and finally came to life. The old man's eyes widened in relief. Rajesh quickly disconnected the cables and closed the hood, his clothes dripping. The man stepped out holding an umbrella and said, "You've saved me, son." "I didn't know what to do." Rajesh smiled modestly. "It's nothing, sir. Just glad to help. You should get home safe now." The old man looked at him carefully, as if studying his face. "Please, let me pay you for your time." "You must be soaked through." Rajesh shook his head. No, it's fine. It was just a few minutes' work. But you came out in this storm, and I can't even imagine what would have happened if you hadn't stopped. Please take something," the man insisted, reaching into his wallet. Rajesh gently stepped back. "Helping someone in trouble doesn't need payment," he said quietly. "Someone helped me once when I was stuck. I'm just returning that favor." The old man looked touched. For a moment he didn't speak. The rain softened slightly, falling like a curtain of silver between them. "At least tell me your name," he said finally. "I'd feel wrong not knowing who helped me tonight." "Rajesh," he said with a small nod. "Rajesh," the man repeated as if memorizing it. "Do you have a phone number? Maybe someday I can return the kindness." Rajesh hesitated, but then gave him his number. "You don't have to, sir. Just get home safe." The man smiled and extended his hand. "Still, I insist." "My name is Mehra, thank you, Rajesh. You've done more than you think." Rajesh shook his hand. His palms were cold, but there was warmth in the old man's eyes. With that, Mr. Mehra got into his car, waved, and drove off slowly into the rain. The red taillights faded into the mist until they were gone. Rajesh stood there for a moment, the rain hitting his face. He felt tired, but strangely peaceful. Maybe it was the satisfaction of helping someone without expecting anything in return. He got back into his van, started the engine, and continued down the road. The drive home felt different now. The rain still fell, but he didn't notice it as much. He thought about the old man, alone, scared, and helpless, and how easily things could have gone wrong if no one had stopped. Sometimes small choices change everything. Maybe not right away, but life had its quiet way of rewarding good hearts. When Rajesh reached home, it was almost midnight. His small house stood at the end of a narrow lane, lights dim but welcoming. His wife had left a plate of food on the table, covered neatly. He changed into dry clothes and sat down to eat. The food was cold, but it tasted comforting. He didn't tell anyone about the stranger that night. It didn't feel like something that needed to be told. It was just one human helping another. Yet somewhere deep inside he felt that the night had been special, different somehow. He went to bed listening to the rain on the roof, not knowing that what seemed like a small act of kindness would soon change the course of his entire life. The next morning, the sky was clear again, as if the storm had never happened. The streets glistened under the sunlight, puddles reflecting the blue of the sky. Rajesh opened his small garage as usual, sweeping away the mud that had washed in during the rain. The smell of wet earth mixed with the familiar scent of oil and metal. It was a new day, but his mind still wandered back to the old man from the night before. He didn't know why he kept thinking about it. Maybe it was the way the man had looked at him, grateful but also curious, like he had seen something more than just a stranger helping another stranger. Rajesh brushed the thought aside and got to work. A motorbike needed servicing, and there were 2 cars waiting for minor repairs. As the morning passed, he fell into his usual rhythm. He enjoyed fixing things. It gave him peace. Machines made sense to him. They didn't lie, didn't pretend. If something was broken, you could find the problem, fix it, and it worked again. He wished life were that simple. By noon, his friend and part-time helper, Karan, came by with tea. "You look lost in thought today," Karen said, handing him a cup. "Just thinking," Rajesh replied, wiping his hands. "Last night I stopped to help an old man whose car broke down. It was raining hard. Poor fellow looked scared." Karen raised his eyebrows. "You out in that storm? You've got a big heart, brother, but you should be careful. These days not everyone's honest." Rajesh smiled faintly. "Maybe, but not everyone's bad either." The day went on. Customers came and went, and by evening he was tired again. But it was the good kind of tired, the kind that came after a long, honest day. As he locked up the garage, his phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "Hello?" he answered. "Is this Rajesh?" a familiar voice asked. "Yes." "Who's speaking?" "This is Mara," the old man said, his tone warm and cheerful. "You helped me last night on the highway." Rajesh smiled instantly. "Oh, sir, I'm glad to hear from you. Did you get home safely?" "Yes, thanks to you," Mr. Mara replied. "I wanted to thank you properly. Could you come to my office tomorrow?" "I insist. It's not about payment, I promise. I just want to see you." Rajesh hesitated. He wasn't used to meeting well-dressed people in offices. His world was grease, tools, and engines, not polished floors and air conditioning. But there was something sincere in the man's voice. "All right, sir. Tell me the address." The next morning, Rajesh dressed neatly. He wore a clean shirt, ironed trousers, and polished shoes that still looked old but respectable. He caught the early bus into the city, clutching a small bag with his tools just in case he got a job call later. When he reached the address, he stopped and stared for a moment. It was a tall building, glass from top to bottom, with guards at the entrance and cars parked neatly in rows. He almost turned back, thinking he didn't belong there. But then he remembered the kindness in Mr. Mara's eyes and walked in. Inside, everything looked shiny and quiet. The receptionist greeted him and asked for his name. "Mr. Mara is expecting you," she said with a smile, pointing toward the elevator. Rajesh took a deep breath and went up. When he entered the office, he saw Mr. Mara sitting behind a large wooden desk, reading something. The old man looked up and smiled broadly. "Ah, Rajesh, you came. I'm so glad." "Good morning, sir," Rajesh said, still a little nervous. "Come, sit down," Mr. Mara said, standing up to shake his hand. "You look just as humble as you sounded last night." Rajesh sat quietly. The office was filled with framed photos of Mr. Mara with other people. Some looked like business meetings, others family pictures. There were small plants on the window ledge and a faint smell of coffee in the air. "I was telling my daughter about you," Mr. Mara began. She couldn't believe. Rajesh looked down, embarrassed. Sir, I just did what anyone should do. The old man smiled kindly. Maybe, but not everyone does. Tell me, how's your work going? You said you're a mechanic, right? Yes, sir. I run a small garage outside the city. It's not much, but it keeps food on the table, Rajesh said honestly. Mr. Mehra nodded thoughtfully. I used to run an automobile company before I retired. Cars have always been part of my life too. But I've been planning to start something new, something smaller, more personal. Maybe a service center run with honesty and care. People like you are rare, Rajesh. Rajesh smiled politely, unsure what to say. Mr. Mehra leaned forward. You know, the way you helped me, it wasn't just about fixing a car. It was your attitude. No hesitation, no greed. That kind of honesty is what every business needs. I'd like to meet you again soon. Perhaps we can talk about something that might benefit both of us. Rajesh was surprised. He had come expecting a thank you, not a conversation about business. Sir, that's very kind of you. I'm happy to help in any way I can, he said, his voice modest. Mr. Mehra laughed softly. I like that. We'll talk again in a few days. For now, at least let me buy you lunch. They went to a nearby cafe. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet. Over lunch, they spoke more. Mr. Mehra told him stories about his younger days, how he had started his first business, the struggles he faced, and the people who helped him along the way. Rajesh listened carefully, amazed by how life had brought this meeting to him. When they finished, Mr. Mehra dropped him at the bus stop. Take care, Rajesh, he said, rolling down his window. And remember, sometimes when we help others, we're really helping ourselves in ways we don't yet understand. Rajesh waved as the car drove off. He stood there for a moment, thinking about those words. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Maybe this meeting was just a coincidence, or maybe it meant something more. On the ride home, he looked out the window at the passing streets. His thoughts wandered to his garage, his family, and that kind old man who had treated him not as a poor mechanic, but as an equal. For the first time in a long while, he felt that life had something bigger planned for him, something he couldn't yet see but could somehow feel. As the bus rumbled along, he smiled to himself. The rain had brought two strangers together, but deep down he sensed it wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. The next few weeks passed quietly. Rajesh went back to his usual life at the garage. Work came and went, and though his hands were busy, his mind often drifted to that meeting with Mr. Mehra. There was something about that old man that stayed with him, his calm voice, his gentle way of speaking, and the feeling that he saw something in Rajesh that others usually didn't notice. But life didn't pause for thoughts. Bills kept coming, customers kept complaining, and Rajesh kept working. His garage wasn't in the best location. It stood at the corner of a dusty road surrounded by small shops and tea stalls. He had dreams of expanding it one day, maybe buying better equipment or hiring more people, but those dreams felt far away. One evening, as he was cleaning his tools, the sound of his phone ringing broke the silence. He looked at the screen and saw an unknown number again. For a moment he thought it might be a customer, but when he answered, a familiar voice greeted him. Rajesh, it's Mehra here. How are you, my boy? Rajesh smiled, surprised and happy to hear from him. I'm good, sir. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Listen, I've been thinking about something since the day we met. Are you free tomorrow morning? I'd like you to come to my office again. Of course, sir, Rajesh replied quickly. I'll be there. Good. I'll be waiting for you, Mr. Mehra said, his voice calm but with a hint of excitement. The next morning, Rajesh dressed neatly again, just like the first time. He told his wife he might be late, though even she was curious now about this mysterious businessman who had suddenly entered her husband's life. When Rajesh arrived at the office, he was welcomed warmly. Mr. Mehra looked pleased to see him. Hi, Rajesh, come in. I've been waiting for you. Please sit down. Rajesh took his seat, wondering what this meeting was about. The old man looked serious, as though he had something important to share. I've been thinking a lot about that night, Mr. Mehra began slowly. That rainy night when you stopped to help me. You had no reason to stop. You didn't know who I was, and yet you helped me without hesitation. That kind of honesty and kindness is rare these days. Rajesh smiled shyly. Sir, I just did what anyone should do. Maybe, the man said, nodding. But you see, I've met many people in my life, businessmen, engineers, managers. They all have skills, but not all have heart. You, Rajesh, have both. You know your work and you care about people. That's why I wanted to see you again. Rajesh looked puzzled. Sir, I don't understand. Mr. Mehra leaned back in his chair. I'm planning to start a new car service center. Not a big one like those fancy companies. Something personal, focused on trust and quality. I want it to be run by someone who values honesty and hard work. I want that person to be you. For a moment, Rajesh didn't speak. He thought he had misheard. Me? Sir, I'm just a small garage owner. I don't have the money or the experience for such a big job. Mr. Mehra smiled patiently. You have the experience, Rajesh. You've been fixing cars for years. You know your craft better than most people in suits. As for money, let me worry about that. I'll invest in it. You'll manage it. We'll be partners. Rajesh's eyes widened. Partners? Sir, that's too much. I can't accept that. You're not accepting a gift, Mr. Mehra said softly. You're accepting an opportunity. You earned it that night when you stopped for me. I saw something honest in you, something this world needs more of. And I believe good people deserve good chances. Rajesh sat quietly, trying to take it all in. His heart was beating fast. All his life he had worked hard, hoping for something better, but he had never imagined something like this. Think about it, Mr. Mehra continued. We can start small. You'll handle the work, and I'll guide you on the business side. I've built companies before and I know how to run them. But what I don't have anymore is the energy to do it myself. You're the right person for this. Rajesh nodded slowly, his throat tight with emotion. Sir, I don't know what to say. No one has ever trusted me like this. Mr. Mehra smiled. Then maybe it's time someone did. They spent the next hour discussing ideas, location, costs, possible names, and how the new center could offer better service at fair prices. Mr. Mehra wanted it to be a place where customers felt respected, not cheated. Rajesh's eyes lit up as he shared his thoughts. He spoke passionately about the mistakes he saw in other workshops, how people were overcharged, how no one cared to explain what went wrong with their vehicles. He wanted to change that. Mr. Mehra listened with genuine interest. That's exactly the attitude we need, he said. People like you are the reason small businesses survive. When the meeting ended, Mr. Mehra stood up and said, I'll start working on the paperwork. In a few weeks, we'll have everything ready. I'll call you soon. As Rajesh walked out of the building, the sunlight hit his face. The world suddenly felt brighter. He could hardly believe what had just happened. The man he had helped one rainy night now wanted to make him his partner. It felt like a dream, one that he didn't want to wake up from. On his way home, Rajesh thought about how life could change so unexpectedly. He thought about all those nights he had stayed late at his garage worrying about bills, feeling unseen and forgotten. And now one simple act of kindness had opened a door he didn't even know existed. That evening he told his wife everything. She listened in disbelief at first and then smiled with tears in her eyes. See, she said softly, good things come back to good people. You've always helped others even when you had so little. Now it's your turn. Rajesh nodded, still trying to process it all. I don't know if I deserve it, he said. You do, she replied firmly. You always have. That night Rajesh couldn't sleep. He lay awake thinking about the future, about the new business, about Mr. Mehra's faith in him, and about how strange life was. Sometimes blessings didn't arrive wrapped in grand gestures. Sometimes they came disguised as a broken-down car on a rainy night. As the quiet hum of the ceiling fan filled the room, Rajesh closed his eyes and smiled. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for sure. Life was finally changing. And this time, it was changing for the better. The following weeks were some of the most exciting and nerve-wracking days of Rajesh's life. Every morning began with phone calls, discussions, and meetings about the new service center that Mr. Mehra had promised to start with him. For the first time, Rajesh wasn't just fixing vehicles. He was planning something of his own. The feeling was new, strange, and beautiful all at once. Mr. Mehra kept his word. He arranged a small office space in a quiet industrial area, just a few kilometers from Rajesh's old garage. It wasn't huge, but it was neat and well built. The place had enough room for 2 car bays, a small waiting area, and an office desk. When Rajesh first walked in and saw the empty space, he felt like a dream was taking shape before his eyes. I want you to make this your own, Mr. Mehra said, smiling as they walked through the place together. You'll manage the work. I'll handle the paperwork and the finances. Together we'll build something honest, something people can trust. Rajesh nodded, trying to hide the emotion rising in his chest. Thank you, sir. I don't know how to repay you for this. You already have, Mr. Mera replied. You repaid me that night on the highway when you stopped in the rain. This is just life returning the favor. They began preparing everything step by step. Rajesh worked long hours, sometimes from sunrise until late night, cleaning the place, setting up shelves, arranging tools, and making sure every corner looked right. Mr. Mera visited often, sometimes bringing tea or snacks, and occasionally sharing advice from his years of running businesses. During one of those visits, Rajesh asked curiously, "Sir, why are you doing all this for me? You hardly know me." Mr. Mera smiled softly. "Because when I was younger, someone once helped me when I had nothing. A stranger gave me a chance and it changed my whole life. I've never forgotten that. Now it's my turn to pass it on. Life is a circle, Rajesh. What you give always finds its way back." Those words stayed in Rajesh's mind for days. He realized that kindness truly moved from one person to another, like a chain that never ends. Within a month, the service center was almost ready. A new board hung at the entrance with the name Mehra and Rajesh Motors. The first time Rajesh saw it, his eyes filled with tears. His name, printed beside someone he respected deeply, felt like more than a dream. It felt like destiny. The opening day arrived bright and clear. A few of Rajesh's old customers came, curious to see his new place. Mr. Mera's family also attended, his daughter, her husband, and 2 children who ran around laughing. There was a small ribbon-cutting ceremony, nothing too grand, but the air was filled with happiness. As Mr. Mera handed Rajesh the first set of keys, he said, "This is your start, my friend. Run it with honesty and success will follow." Rajesh nodded. "I'll never forget this day, sir. I'll make sure you never regret trusting me." From that day forward, Rajesh gave his heart to the business. He treated every customer with care, explaining every repair in simple words, never overcharging and always delivering on time. Slowly, word spread about the honest mechanic who worked with precision and respect. People started coming from nearby towns just to get their cars serviced there. Mr. Mera would drop by often, sometimes just to watch. "You see," he told Rajesh one day, "money and machines are important, but trust, and that's what keeps a business alive. And you, Rajesh, are building that trust every day." Months passed and the center grew busier. Rajesh hired 2 helpers, one of them a young boy who reminded him of his own younger days. He trained them patiently, teaching not just how to fix cars but how to treat people right. Despite the long hours, Rajesh never felt tired. There was joy in his work now. He wasn't just repairing vehicles. He was shaping a future for himself, his family, and everyone who believed in him. Sometimes in the evenings, when the day's work was done, he and Mr. Mera would sit on the small bench outside the shop, sipping tea and talking about life. "You know," Mr. Mera said one evening watching the sunset, "people think destiny is written somewhere far away, but I think destiny is written right here." He tapped his chest lightly. "It changes the moment you choose to do the right thing." Rajesh smiled, remembering that rainy night. "I didn't think much that night," he said. "I just saw someone who needed help." "And that's exactly why it changed your life," Mr. Mera replied with a smile. One afternoon, a wealthy businessman came to the center with his expensive car. He had heard about the place from a friend and wanted to try it. Rajesh treated him the same as he treated anyone else, polite, honest, and patient. After the work was done, the man said, "You run this place very well. You could easily charge more." Rajesh smiled. "Maybe, but I charge what's fair." "That's enough." The businessman nodded in approval. "You'll go far with that attitude," he said before leaving. Moments like that made Rajesh proud. He realized that true respect came not from wealth but from the way you lived and treated others. One evening, Mr. Mera called him into the office. "Rajesh, I've been thinking," he began seriously. "I'm getting older now. I can't come here as often as I used to. I want you to take full charge of the business. From today, consider it yours. I'll remain a silent partner, but you'll make all the decisions." Rajesh was stunned. "Sir, you've already done so much for me. I can't take that responsibility alone." Mr. Mera smiled warmly. "You're ready, Rajesh. I've watched you grow, not just as a mechanic, but as a man. You've built this place with your hard work. You've earned it." For a moment, Rajesh couldn't speak. His throat tightened with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you, sir." "You already have," Mr. Mera said, patting his shoulder gently, "by proving that I was right to believe in you." That night, as Rajesh closed the shop, he looked up at the signboard glowing under the streetlight. The name Mehra and Rajesh Motors seemed to shine brighter than ever. He stood there for a long moment, feeling the cool breeze on his face, and thought about how far he had come. From a struggling mechanic on a rainy night to the proud owner of a respected business. He realized that success didn't come overnight. It came quietly, step by step, guided by kindness, honesty, and a little bit of fate. Before leaving, he whispered softly to himself, "Thank you, life." As he locked the gate and walked away, he didn't notice that a few drops of rain had begun to fall again, just like that night when everything had begun. A full year had passed since that rainy night. The small service center that had started with just 2 people was now a busy, trusted workshop. Every morning the shutters opened early, and the sound of engines, tools, and laughter filled the air. Customers no longer came just for repairs. They came because they trusted Rajesh and his way of doing things. Every time he walked into the shop, he still felt a wave of gratitude. The signboard outside, Mehra and Rajesh Motors, had faded a little from the sun, but to him it shined brighter than ever. It wasn't just a name. It was the story of how one night, one act of kindness had changed everything. Mr. Mehra didn't come as often now. His health had started to slow him down, but whenever he visited, he was greeted with smiles and respect. The workers admired him, and the customers loved hearing how he and Rajesh had met. Sometimes, while sitting on the wooden bench outside, he would tell the story himself with a soft chuckle. "One rainy night, I was stuck on the highway," he would begin, "and this man, Rajesh, appeared out of nowhere to help me. I didn't know then that he'd become my partner, my friend, and the heart of this place." People always smiled when they heard it. Some even said it sounded like a movie. Rajesh would just laugh and shake his head. "Life writes better stories than any movie," he would say. Business was good, but Rajesh never let success change who he was. He still wore his old uniform, still worked beside his employees, and still served tea to his customers. He believed that the secret to growth was humility, to never forget where you started. One evening, when the day's work was done, Rajesh sat on the same bench outside the shop. The sky was gray and clouds were gathering again. The air smelled like rain. He looked at the road ahead and smiled. Rain had always brought something special into his life. Just then, his phone buzzed. It was a call from Mr. Mehra's daughter. Her voice was calm but carried a hint of sadness. "Uncle Papa hasn't been feeling well today. He's asking for you. Could you come by?" Rajesh's heart skipped a beat. He left everything and drove straight to Mr. Mehra's house. The rain had started by the time he reached. The same sound, the same smell. It felt like that night all over again. When he entered the house, he saw Mr. Mehra resting on a chair near the window, watching the rain. He looked weaker, his hair thinner, but his eyes still had the same warmth. "Rajesh," he said softly, smiling as he saw him. "You came." "Of course, sir," Rajesh said, sitting beside him. "You should have called earlier." Mr. Mehra shook his head. "I didn't want to worry you. I just wanted to see you." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain tapping against the window. Finally, Mr. Mehra spoke. "Do you remember that night?" Rajesh nodded. "How could I forget?" "I sometimes think," the old man said, his voice faint, "that maybe I was meant to be stuck that night, just so you would stop. Maybe destiny wasn't about me needing help, but about me finding someone who deserved a chance." Rajesh felt his throat tighten. "Sir, you gave me everything. I don't even know how to thank you." "You already have," Mr. Mehra said, his voice gentle. "You kept your word. You built something honest. You gave people jobs. You proved that kindness never goes to waste." The room went quiet again, the rain outside growing heavier. Mr. Mehra closed his eyes for a moment, and Rajesh just sat there watching him, feeling a deep respect and affection for the man who had changed his life. After a while, Mr. Mehra opened his eyes again and smiled. "Promise me something, Rajesh. No matter how successful you become, don't stop helping others. Be someone's light the way you were mine that night." Rajesh nodded firmly. "I promise, sir." Mr. Mehra reached out and held his hand. "Good. That's all I ever wanted." Days later, Mr. Mehra's health worsened. He passed away peacefully, leaving behind memories, wisdom, and a legacy that lived in every corner of the service center. The loss hit Rajesh deeply, but he also felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Mr. Mehra hadn't just given him a business, He had given him belief, direction, and purpose. After the funeral, Rajesh stood outside the workshop staring at the signboard again. The name Mehra wasn't just a name anymore. It was part of him. He decided that no matter how far life took him, that name would never come down. It was a promise he intended to keep. As months passed, Rajesh began new initiatives in the service center. He started a small program to train young mechanics from poor families, teaching them skills for free. Mr. Mehra would have wanted this, he would tell his workers. The shop became more than just a place for fixing cars, it became a place for changing lives. One particular evening, the rain returned. Heavy and unending, just like that first night. Rajesh was locking up when he noticed a small car parked by the side of the road. The headlights were on, and a young man stood beside it, waving helplessly. Without thinking, Rajesh grabbed his umbrella and walked over. "What happened?" he asked. "Sir, I think my battery died. I've been trying to call for help, but the signal's gone." Rajesh smiled. "Don't worry, I can help." He brought his jump cables, connected them carefully, and within minutes the car engine started again. The young man's face lit up in relief. "Thank you so much, sir. Please let me pay you." Rajesh shook his head gently. "No need, just help someone else someday when you get the chance." "That's enough." The young man looked surprised. "You're sure?" Rajesh smiled and nodded. "Completely." As the car drove away, Rajesh stood there for a while, watching the rain fall, feeling the cool drops on his face. It was as if life had brought him full circle, from the man who once stopped for a stranger in the rain to the man now doing the same for another. He looked up at the dark sky, whispered softly, "Thank you, sir," and smiled. When he returned to his shop, the lights glowed warmly through the rain. He knew that Mr. Mehra's spirit lived on, not just in the name on the board, but in every act of kindness that followed. Sometimes destiny doesn't arrive with noise or grand signs. It comes quietly, in the form of a stranger in need on a rainy night waiting for someone to stop and care.